So there's another one now that you're going to show us, right? And
Okay, yeah. Well, what happened is it's kind of part of that confusion that we talked about earlier. Um, so Bill decides to move out of the old Fillmore, keeps
uh
Winterland, which we just saw, and he moves to Market Van Ness to the Carousel Ballroom, which holds 2,000 people.
yeah,
It's got a really cool wraparound light show, and it's it becomes the classic venue of San Francisco for the next 2 years. Opened in '68 and went to '71.
the Fillmore
And
West,
also simultaneously with that, he opened at Fillmore East,
right?
and it's the same deal happened there. He ran it from the same year. He
Yeah,
took the money he made in '67 and Summer of Love, and he invested in these two venues.
he's getting big
And
time now. He's
right, and
bi-coastal
so
and
right,
yeah,
and so he's this is what he did. He would have 4 nights of the Fillmore West. Okay, so Thursday night you got a couple bands there, Grateful Dead, Boss Skaggs, whatever. So he kind of hangs out, gets them going, meets the bands, makes sure everybody's happy. So he leaves about 11 o'clock at night, and he drives to SFO,
the
hops
airport.
a plane, and he arrives in New York at 6 in the morning, the red eye. Right?
So he's
Takes the
finishing up the
subway in,
show. Yeah,
jumps out at the Fillmore East, opens the door, and now he's going to have Friday night and Saturday night, 2 shows each with the Who and whoever, Jimi Hendrix or whatever.
right.
And so then Saturday night, he says goodbye to the bands, make sure they settle up, takes the money, goes back to the airport, flies back to California, and they're still playing on Sunday night, the Grateful Dead and Boss Skaggs, and he ends up settling with them and hanging out with them. So it looks like he's covered.
Did he sleep at all? Like, what's like?
The guy didn't sleep. He couldn't sleep very much. I mean, that's
That's the thing. Yeah, I imagine I would be pretty stressed out too if I'm running, 3 venues and cross country.
You're right. But I mean, it's kind of brilliant, if you think about it, because
Yeah,
after you finish Saturday night, you fly, even if you fly at like 6 in the morning,
yeah,
you gain 3 hours. So you get to San Francisco at noon, right?
right.
And you can go open up at 3 on Sunday, and see and hang with the bands.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
he crammed them
crazy.
in Fillmore. They do 2 shows at Fillmore East.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go to the Fillmore West.
Yeah, yeah. Let's check out the Fillmore West. Yeah.
All right. So there is the Carousel Ballroom with the line around the corner.
So it was called the Carousel Ballroom first.
Yeah, but you can see he's got his Fillmore name on it
Right.
and then he dragged the Fillmore to West and East. So
Right.
Fillmore West is here,
So,
and Grateful Dead have just released Working Man's Dead, and they're going to play
oh,
there this
and you see at the billboard up top. Yeah. That's cool. So so it was officially like, did it ever officially change its name to Fillmore, or was it just branded Fillmore, or was it always called the Carousel Ballroom?
No, you can see up above the Carousel Ballroom it says Fillmore West.
Right, right. So people call it the Fillmore, even though
I mean, these places are built in like 1911. These
right.
ballrooms, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and like after the earthquake in San Francisco.
Hmm.
That was the Carousel. It was probably for like big bands and dances. My parents went to or whatever.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Here is Albert King and Country Joe and the Fish, and Bloodwind Pig, Fillmore West, Brotherhood of Light. I went to the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this was yeah, I actually went to that concert.
Yeah, you can see the Brotherhood of Light there. It's a little small, but in between Bloody or Bloodwind Pig and Fillmore West, you see the Brotherhood of Light, which like we were saying, by this point, light shows are now getting billing on the posters. It's treated as an art form. It's it's getting the respect that that it deserves.
Okay, so we're gonna go. This next poster is really cool. Okay.
Oh wow.
The Who, James Cotton. Okay.
And this is Rick Griffin
Rick
poster,
Griffin,
isn't it?
right. And is Brotherhood on here? I don't know, but they did that.
No, I see it. Holy See at the where it says bottom left, or Fillmore West on the left of it. Lights by Holy See, which was one of the big light shows back then.
Right, which we mentioned earlier. Okay, so now, but there's 2 gigs. One is at Winterland, and one is the Fillmore.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's 2 weeks. I don't know. Actually, it's a bunch of different dates. Okay, let's go to the next slide because this is the Who
Mm-hmm.
doing a live show at the Fillmore, and you can see that it's a low ceiling
Mm-hmm.
in the building.
Right.
Look, there's the lights, those shadows that are on the screen here.
Yeah, hit it with the laser pointer. Yeah, you can see the Licos kind of hanging down a bit. I mean, that's
So
pretty.
these are actually shadows of lights that are out in the audience shining on the band right here.
Right.
And the light show is so far back behind them. It's like 120 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Projecting the liquids onto the stage. So now they also, okay, so this is the center behind the band. It's like, maybe 15 feet by 30 feet,
Mm-hmm.
a 40 feet wide stage. Okay. Then around the sides of this room, there's wraparound screens. So I'm going to go to that next slide. Oops. And you can, this is Santana.
Okay.
And back here, the laser pointer is the light show booth.
Oh yeah, you can see them. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some spotlights and stuff. And then I don't even think they have a light show on at this point because it's just like grand finale type thing with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But you see the screen there?
Yep.
Okay, so that screen wrapped around, and do the next slide, and it went all the way around the back of the stage and all the way around the other side.
Right.
So you're talking 120 feet here and 50 feet on each side.
Uh-huh.
So what happened was, there's the light show booth up here.
Oh yeah.
They had to feel like this panel right here would be a slide projector, and this panel would be another slide projector, and this one would be another slide projector. So you really needed 6 slide projectors to do double images on those panels. Then back here, you had your liquids and your film loops and maybe another overhead or another slide. And then you had the same thing on the other side. So you needed 12 slide projectors to do the Fillmore, just to fill the side panels.
Right, because there's just so much. Like, how many people you think would be in these light shows? I mean, did the other light shows have to bring on extra people and extra assistants and hands to work here?
We'll break that down. Let's just do a slide. There's Country Joe and Led Zeppelin, Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
That little light on the license.
Oh yeah, Brotherhood Light on the license plate. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll get to that question. I'm just going to go
okay.
through this.
Yeah.
So this was Grateful Dead. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have an album called Live Dead. It's their definitive heavy jamming album, and they recorded it at this show.
Yeah.
Brotherhood of Light.
And you can see the Brotherhood of Light on the door handle there of that poster.
This Brotherhood of Light thing right
here.
And then this is them playing.
Okay.
That show.
This is the actual show.
Yeah. And you can see, once again, those shadows of all those lights.
How low the damn screen is. Yeah. How high? What is that? Like 12 feet tops?
It's
I mean,
probably, from the top of like a Marshall amp, it's probably 12 feet.
Right. Yeah.
So what you had here was, I'll go to the next slide. Just, I think it'll help us imagine what you're doing. Okay. So here is the Fillmore now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been saved.
The Fillmore West.
Fillmore West. Carousel. It's supposed to be torn down. They've torn out the gold lame ceiling.
Yeah.
And so the stage would be here.
Yeah.
That's that 120 feet. And the other screen would come all the way out to here. And the light show booth would be back here.
Okay.
40 feet of booth. Right? So you had 2 guys hitting the center with liquids, and maybe a third guy washing plates, and then doing like another overhead with maybe color wheels and like hard image candy dishes or film or whatever. And then you had, this panel with slides, that panel, and that panel. So you had the person on that side loading those slide projectors. You had a person on this side loading slide projectors over here, hitting those side panels. And then you had a guy in the middle doing film loops also with like 3. So you really got, it's going to take 3, 4, 5, 6 people to run that show.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah, that's crazy.
and you know, and a massive amount of electricity, because it's these are, you know, all like 1,000-watt, 500-watt projectors, every one of them.
Yeah, and you were telling me you guys would like, you know, you guys would have to bring your own fuses. And I think the last time we talked, you were talking about the glass fuses. And now I actually remember, you know, as a kid, I do remember seeing the glass. They look almost like door handles, like a crystal, you
Yeah,
know.
right. You say
Yeah,
like a small, like a cabinet handle.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm gonna go to Glenn Mckay here.
Oh
And
yeah. And this is Glenn Mckay, who's, you know,
so
one of
he's in
the
the Fillmore, and the reason I know he's in the Fillmore for 2 reasons. There's a spotlight behind him.
right, which we saw shining in some of those other photos. Yeah.
And then right here, you see how small that crop on his projector is?
Right.
That's all the liquids he's got to show,
Right.
because he's throwing 120 feet.
Right.
You
So
know?
yeah, yeah.
And the screen's only like, you know, 30 by 15 feet high. You know,
right.
so
So
he
for
has just this tiny little thing.
folks can understand, you know, I mean, the way a beam comes out like this, you know, but as it gets farther away, it gets wider and wider. So if he used that whole part of the, you know, the stage or the image plane of the overhead projector,
Mhm.
he'd be blowing the whole thing out. So he had to focus it by really cropping out. And that is an extremely small mask. And because he said it's what, like 120-foot throw distance or something like that.
Uh, you know, well, it's got a basketball court. A basketball court's 90 feet. Right? You
Okay.
have 2 basketball hoops. Well, they were like 10 feet from the wall, each one. Or whatever.
Okay.
So, you know, if you added 90, maybe it was 110.
Yeah, yeah.
Across the building.
But he
And
has
then back in these like hallways, there was people sitting in there also. So,
right.
but it's probably 110 feet.
But this, yeah, this is a cool image. I mean, if we can stay on it, because this is like a classic, classic image. Like you can see his color wheels. You can see also like all his different dyes. And we talked about he's got these like Flowmaster inks, which are those cans, which are you can't get them anymore because like I said, I'm pretty sure they're based in like xylene or something like that. So they've discontinued those, and they use, you guys use some gnarly chemicals back then, right? Or
well, they did.
Yeah.
By the time Pete and I started doing it, I did liquids when I was a kid, but it was like my mom's stuff in the kitchen.
All right, right. You're taking, yeah.
But which you can do, you can take peanut oil and you can take water and food color, do a light show. I mean, it's not that hard. Now there's a variac in there in the middle.
Right, in the middle of variac, and for people who don't know what's a variac, it's
variac is right here. It's a controller that gives you it fades out your electricity.
Right.
So when you design these projectors, which we're going to get into the next show, you take your lamps and you run them straight into the variac. You keep your fans running in these fan areas at all times, and you can dim the light up and down, and you can also drive the wattage of the light bulb brighter.
Oh, brighter than it.
Variacing it to like 140 to 110 is your normal, or 120 is your normal.
Yep.
Electric.
Yep.
Well, we would go to 160.
Oh, okay.
To get brighter, because you're throwing that distance, you got to be really bright, to show up. That was a lesson. That
what's that other stuff? So I see some stuff that's almost like switches. If you look at the tray with his oils, right underneath it.
I don't know, but I have a funny feeling that might have been color wheel.
Oh, like it would make the color wheels move. Yeah, right. I don't know if we talked about
the color wheel, and there's a couple speed controls here, it looks like.
Right. Yeah. So you have that color wheel in front of, and this is a big one that's passing through both projector beams, correct?
Possibly. It looks like maybe just one.
Maybe just one.
Maybe both. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I've really found always interesting about this picture is he has these like shades, or what do you want to call it? Like tinted windows almost, right? Like,
oh, right.
Yeah, if you can like point at them at the laser pointer, please.
These right here. So when from his eye, he's looking down at the liquids, it's not frying him.
Right. So anybody who's ever done this, staring at the actual light source in front of you, I mean, it's blinding and it sucks because your eyes need time to adjust. So when you look up, you're suddenly a little blinded about, what's on the screen and all that. So it's brilliant. I've never really seen it used much, but it's a great idea really to, allow him to have keep his vision correct throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jerry had those at his projectors when I used them, and
Yeah.
Jerry Abrams and Glenn had the same projectors, and these are hot rod
Because they
projectors.
work together. I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit about them. Because there were or tell us about it. Maybe they work
Okay, so
together
yeah,
and
just
yeah,
just to get it straight, and people know this. And Jerry Abrams and Glenn Mckay were called Headlights originally.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so it was headlights, you know, headlights in a car, but headlights being hippies are heads, right?
Right. Okay.
Headlights, right? Okay. So, but Jerry Abrams is like an explosive dude, and Glenn is like a total like laid back guy.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how long they lasted, but it wasn't that long. So they ended up being Jerry Abrams headlights and Glenn Mckay headlights.
Okay.
So that's how they split. Okay.
Right.
So Glenn goes on and he goes on tour with the Jefferson airplane.
Right. Which there's some great videos of. If you look up old
Right.
Jefferson airplanes, really good light
He
show
does a couple
videos.
television shows with them, which you see.
Yeah. Yeah. He got on
Abbott.
TV with them and yeah.
And he was like a fifth or sixth, whatever, how many band members, seventh band member. And he
Yeah.
got a percentage of the gate or their money that they made because
Right.
he was one of the only guys that really went to make really good money for a while in this business.
Right. And I've seen his technical rider. I mean, he'd have it whenever the airplane would tour, he'd have a technical rider with what they needed for him to rear project and all those kinds of things, which is nice to have because a lot of times you get to a venue and they're like, this is what you have and work with it. But he seemed, my understanding too of the differences between Jerry, and maybe we can talk about it at another episode, but like you said, like Jerry Abrams was like a explosive personality. And I guess Glenn was more controlled about his shows where Jerry was more like working by feel or sort of, more.
Well, Jerry Abrams, and we don't have. We're going to see. Actually, I'm going to go to Jerry Abrams a little bit. I'll explain. Can we wait?
Yeah. Let's
just
move
go
off of it
because you're feeding into what is going to come. Okay, so this is the last shot of the Fillmore.
Okay.
And okay, just to add on to all of us, all the potheads in the audience here, there was this gold lame ceiling that kind of went like this. It was like gold lame, and it was a low ceiling, and so when you were there, everybody was smoking pot. And I don't care if you inhaled or not. If you were breathing in the room, you got hot.
You got the contact high, yeah.
Well, you breathe. The air was just full on pot smoke. Okay.
Yeah.
The Fillmore. Okay. Free high. All right.
Mm-hmm.
With your $3 ticket. All right. So this show is the Grateful Dead and Miles Davis, and Ed told me that this is one of his favorite shows. He said it was just killer. And
yeah.
Can you imagine doing like a light show to Miles Davis, and you're using all your abstract art and weird shit, and just and he's playing Bitches Brew, that album, and that period. And I mean, we're talking some really, really cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
Grateful Dead are pretty out there.
And then you got the Dead. I mean, that together on a bill is like, this is just I mean, this is like this is like one of these, like if I was to go back in time, I'd definitely try to hit up the show.
Yeah, and the fact that Ed says it was his favorite show.
Yeah.
Okay, now here is the Allman Brothers at the Fillmore West. We can see the thin screen again. The lights back here. And there's a flower slide, and that is Little Princess 109.
Okay.
Doing the light show for that show. And okay, I'm going to go to here, and then we're going to go. Okay. So now we've got Quicksilver, Messenger Serves, Mock the Hoople, Silver Meter, Brotherhood of Light. I was at this show. And this kind of artwork that Singer put together in his poster would be something I would put in a light show.
Right.
An image. Like I'd be flying through liquids or something,
Right. Because the collaging is really an important element of, what Brotherhood of Light did or other light shows did, and just in general, in my opinion too, what a good light show should be, not just like the liquids and abstract, but kind of tell a story and throw some concrete imagery in there and sort of make your mind start creating like a story almost, or like a
Right, right.
I
Or
guess
so,
like a
a guy flying through liquids, it kind of works. It looks like he's surfing or something.
yeah, yeah,
There's Led Zeppelin, I believe, is Fillmore. You can sort of see that same kind of screen
yeah,
look,
it's low, yeah,
low again. And then now we're going to go to the slide banks.
yep, which yeah,
And this is, so these butterfly slides, for instance,
yeah,
you'd have a bank of the 3 butterfly slides going around the side. And then on another projector, you might have 3 of these color slides.
yeah, yeah,
And so then you're running a color wheel on that, and you're animating the butterflies on top of the liquids, boom, boom, boom. And you're controlling the speed with these variacs, or, like light dimmer things.
yeah.
And when the band slows down, like Miles Davis goes into a weird jam or something, you slow everything down and it just starts, boom, and then when they go crazy, you speed it up.
Right, because it's not just the
Great.
slides that are being projected, I know we're going to talk about this in other episodes, but there's also different types of optical modulation in front of the wheel, the slides that are changing the color and spinning and warping them or anything, and and if we just talk about these real quick, because I know when we were kind of like reviewing this stuff, I'm pretty sure that these are slides that I now have because, for a couple of reasons. So Bob Lewis, who is an American guy, but ended up living in London, got down with the scene there and stuff like that, and was really, he's an American guy, but he learned light shows over in England, and then, came back here. These slides, he also had Charles Phillips and Michael Polizzi in their light show called Nuclear View Light Show, and then they were the Northern Lights. So Bob Lewis passed away a couple of years ago. I inherited all of his stuff. But these slides were actually made from Codaliths by Michael Polizzi. And the reason why I'm saying that I'm pretty sure these are, my slides, because the ones on the left there, they're like he hand tinted this stuff. So this isn't like something that you walk into a store and buy. You know what I mean? Like the rarity for somebody to make, and he told me how to make these, like, so, yeah, and then so some of the interesting things they told me that they would do is also do polarized slides, where they would have negative images of each other. And so they'd spin like a polarized wheel in front of them, which would sort of create this like strobe effect.
Right. And you can see that it's hard to see on this Zoom.
Yeah,
but
the face of the woman's face on the
are
left side.
full
Yep.
size slides. They're not
Yeah.
30. These are 35 millimeters down here. See?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
But these are full size. They're big.
Yeah, yeah, they're glass. Yeah.
They're mounted in glass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that we all had these type of slides. The Brotherhood had them. We all had these banks of slides and these big light tables to. So the band starts playing, and you're like, oh, this is cool for spirals, or this is good for, you pick stuff, and you kind of learn when you're doing slides what looks good with music and how to edit a show as you're doing it live. And it's just an education that, like, the people that were taught by Jerry, the second generation, like Reed, Donovan, and Phyllis Laurie, they did slides like I did. And you learn, it's a cool thing because you're jamming live with the band.
Yeah.
You're listening to music and adding images.
And you have to take a light table with you to the venue, right? So you can actually, prep them and stuff like that. And
right. And they might have left one of the Fillmore. I don't know. Jerry Radcliffe told me they left liquids and then they'd share them. So they might have left. They might have had a light table built in. I mean, it makes sense, right? Why not?
Right.
Hey, we're going to be doing shows here, so let's just leave one.
Yeah.
And then everybody can use it.
And the slides were very, very deliberate. Like it wasn't like a carousel where you just run them on random. Like you would very much be like, all right, we're going to pop this one in. We're going to pop that one in.
Right. Also, when you had to run 2 banks of, let me get into this right now. You had to run 2 banks of slides because you changed them by hand. Okay, so you have to put your hand over the slide projector so it doesn't gate, so it doesn't get white light.
Mm-hmm.
You pull one out, put another one in, and then you reveal it, and you go down the row. Well, the other bank of slides is still running, so it's not like a blank screen ever. Then you go change the other row.
Right.
So you have to have 2 rows going, and Ed would call it, if it's just 1 row of slides going, he'd call it electric wallpaper.
Right. It's just wallpaper. It's
Yeah.
right. It's
You,
not
and
a
then
it's
for
not a
color, you're gonna get-
decoration.
both slides are animating together, on the screen.
Right.
So this is another show, Brotherhood of Light, Janis Joplin, and I think this is kind of a good example. This next one of really cool looking slides.
Okay. Yeah.
With Santana, and you can see how awesome. I think this is Jerry Abrams' show because he did a TV show with Santana in Europe.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that little like sort of electricity thing on the left that you see there looks almost like that slide that we saw when you introduced the rear projection at the Fillmore.
Right.
Like, and so this stuff, right? It's kind of, I think it's hard to, this would definitely be, it's a beautiful image, but as if you were able to see a video of it, this would be doing all kinds of crazy stuff because you have all kinds of, wheels and everything go through it and pulling different parts of the image out and in. So this is like a very animated live thing as it's actually going on. Like it's strobing, it's, shifting colors and animating, like you said, as it's going on.
Okay, so here is the guys up in the booth, the slide projector people. Yep. In this case, it's a woman. They're using those German slide projectors. Those, and look, there's one there. Each one of these spots is one. There's probably, it looks like there's about 6 or 7 slide projectors going behind the 2 color wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're just hand loading them like crazy,
Yeah.
And, but the bigger color wheels now on our light show site, Light Show Preservation Society, a lot of people use small wheels. We always use the big one because we have the 3 different slide projectors. Each projector would be a different color.
Separate.
Yeah. So this is a classic color wheel look. Okay.
Right. So. Yeah. And we're going to talk about this in the next episode, right? A little bit more about the wheels.
Yeah.
But it is important now just to set context of what's actually going on here.
How much they had to deal with.
Yeah.
Those sidewalls of the Fillmore.
Right.
It just, and there was, like I think I said in the last one, there's the slide guys and there's liquid guys. They're 2 different animals,
Right.
Because, the liquid guys don't like to deal with the slides because they just want to smosh the plates around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here's a bunch of really cool slides.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Another guy's collection, and you can see they're just awesome. You put that one up and this one together and get a color wheel on it. It would do totally, and they're separate color wheels. Well, this one's blue, that one's red, and they're going to start giving you a three-dimensional effect.
And it's in principle, it's not much different than like a GIF right now, where you have like just a 2 or 3 frame animation. But even though it's 2 or 3 frames, it can do a lot. It's not much different than, what we see digitally or going back hundreds of years to Magic Lantern slides, which, were precursors to, projection, or the very, very, very first projection from the 1700s. And they would use very simple, 2-frame animation, kind of, person's arms like this, next frame, they're like this. And you do that really fast, it looks like somebody's moving. But you guys.
The other thing is that in the 60s, everybody had a movie projector and a movie camera and shot their family at birthday parties. And they had a slide projector. The slides were pushed by Kodak. So it was kind of a revolution of color was happening and projection was happening in the 60s.
Right, because I guess also too, like color, black and white, a lot of stuff was shot in black and white, but color films started to kind of come out now too around this time.
Slides came out, so you could shoot a slide and get a slide projector and blow it up on your wall.
Right.
Yeah. And that was kind of cool. I had a slide projector, I had an overhead projector, I had a movie projector. 2 of those were my dad's, and I bought them. The overheads I could do a light show like as a kid. Okay, so here's Jerry Abrams with his crazy setup, with his animation wheels, his color wheels in the back, as you can see right here.
Yep.
He's got an overhead. He's got those old slide projectors, and then this guy over here has got the film loops. You see those loops?
Oh yeah, those strips. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a special little rack they're hanging on. So you can just pick one, put it on a projector.
Hmm.
So there's a film loop guy that's just doing film loops, and
Yeah.
that was one of the magical part of the Fillmore show is you saw these crazy loops and wild film. You know?
Yeah.
Look how many of them are there, and there's
Oh
probably
yeah.
like 3 on each one of these racks, or 4. You know, it's not
Yeah.
just one strip of film. That's like,
Yeah, I
and
mean, and just looking at this setup, I mean, the labor intensity of this is nuts. I mean, you get all these wires coming out. I'm sure I mean, even now when they do light shows, I mean, stuff breaks down. This is like DIY, homemade stuff. You don't walk into there's no factory cranking these out, so you got stuff that's gonna also break down. Like so it feels like Captain Kirk, not Captain Kirk. Who's the other guy? Scotty, when he's always trying to like fix the Enterprise when there's always something going down on it. And I imagine this is what this was like.
yeah, well, you've got vice grips. You've got these stands, these poles that you're seeing here, these 3
Yep.
poles. Those are chemistry stands.
Yeah.
You see in chemistry class. I'm going to go to the next slide. You'll see them here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and you might want to clamp them on the table.
Hmm.
And then you mount the motor up here, and then you have a rheostat that comes down, and you run the speed of your wheels,
Hmm.
and then he's got color wheels. His show is super intense.
So yeah, because I'm looking at this. So he actually has 2 layers of wheels. He's got one for the color, but then he's got the other one with the holes to kind of
that's the animation wheel.
that's the
So
animation
that's that
wheel.
arm animation, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Picture
yeah.
like that. Then the hand's going
Right, like one slide's doing this and the other slide's doing this, and then you do it real fast. And then before that, you have the color wheels also kind of changing color. I mean, I can imagine this looks nuts in real life.
right. And then so meanwhile, here's a total,
Yeah.
light table, crazy, all the different images that we built,
Hmm.
when we build. And there's the Westmount boxes right there, the Westmount slides.
Yeah.
And we mount them in glass slides so they didn't jam in the projectors.
Hmm.
And stuff like this, where you get this going this way and that going that way, and you animate them, and
Right.
patterns
Yeah.
on the screen like that, which look really cool. And then, so you can sort of see here. Okay, so now this is the Atacambi Light Show.
Yeah.
And this was
Abercrombie.
in the last days of the Fillmore fold out.
Hmm.
And this is the guy George, is that his name?
No, this is actually also John Hartman, who was also actually in Heavy Light. Became also Abercrombie. That was also their light show. And I don't know which one came first, but yeah, basically also John Hartman is one of the people in Abercrombie, and yeah, who's also part of Heavy Light doing this stuff. Yeah.
So this is the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, that's a
Light show
beautiful
shot,
image.
slide
Yeah.
on and thing. Yeah.
The Dead actually posted on their page. You see Bob over there on the right side. They actually posted another angle. Must have actually been like the same photograph taken almost at the same time, because the slide behind them and is almost the same. And I was like, checking out like the positioning of the cups on top of the tie-dye stuff. So like just pure coincidence. You have a shot of Bobby from the front, and if you look on their page, they posted a couple of weeks ago, and you got this one from the side as well. So it's just kind of, just a rarity of actually taking an image. I mean, because first of all, light show photos are pretty hard to come by. Like the stuff that you've been showing us is like, some of this stuff is like deep dives. Like they weren't well documented. They were hard to photograph, or people just forgot to do it. And
Well, especially the Fillmore East, because of the rear projection they had, and they were only like 15 feet from the screen, and they really showed up well there.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of pictures, which is going to be a up and coming episode
Yeah.
of the Fillmore East, but the Fillmore West and I mean, these are hard to find.
Yeah.
I got one shot here. It's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And this could be like the Matrix, or it could be the Avalon. And I think these fireworks are. It could be. I think this is Glenn Mckay. There's some painted slides. There's fireworks, which could be a film loop
Mhm.
of fireworks. You see how much brighter they are on top of the Painted Spines.
Oh yeah.
And I believe it's probably an Avalon shop.
Okay.
There's Paul Kantner and Jack Cassidy and Jeff Smith and the drummer.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are walking around in front of them. I just thought it was kind of a cool shot. So
Yeah. It's neat. Yeah.
go
I've never
to,
seen this one before.
yeah, I just found that recently. So why don't we go back to the two of us?
Yeah.
Slideshow is over.
So that's it for the slides.
Yeah, for this particular show.
I think this is great. Yeah, thanks for showing us all this stuff and taking the time to, you know, really go through it and explain it, because like you said, there's a lot of always confusion about it, and you know, did a real deep dive in history here, but you know, not just the venues, but the bands, and of course the light shows, which were a major part of, you know, this scene from like, you know, 66 to 71 or so. So yeah.
Right, and Bill Graham presents, you know, he kept it going. He piloted it.
Yeah.
You know, he had them. So, you know, he kept going, and it just turned into like more lighting and more spotlights and stuff like that. For
Right. Yeah.
acts that wanted to rock, you know, wanted to run around on stage. And kind of a different vibe in the 70s. And so if you were a light show guy and it was 1972, you were probably out of work.
You're out of work. Yeah, I thought this would be a good time to, you know, the way to, you know, phase out of this show is around 72, like you're saying, you're out of work. You know, I know that there were light shows here and there that would happen throughout the 70s or even a little bit of the 80s and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, even though they were spotty, they definitely went on. Like it didn't just stop, right?
No, it didn't. Well, Josh went off
He
to do
television. Josh. Well, yeah, he did
Joshua.
Joshua Television, where
So that kind of ended. But there
IMAG.
were still some guys going, like this Jay Moss guy in the film, and they did some stuff in Madison Square Garden.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they had another theater there, a smaller theater. They did light
Yeah,
shows.
yeah. The starts with an F. I forget what it's called. Now it's probably the name of some corporation.
And so there was some stuff still going in New York. And then,
okay,
of course, Ed kept the Pepperland open up in San Rafael, and Bob Pullum did shows, but it was a low ceiling. It was more like he was lighting and projection combo.
Yeah.
So that ended up lasting for a year or two, smaller kind of stuff. But Grateful Dead and Pink Floyd and bands played there.
Right.
Then Ed went on tour with John Lee Hooker. Okay, it's probably his tour he did. Kind of a light show and John Lee Hooker combination that could play in like Texas or whatever, you know. And then John Brand, who was San Francisco Lightworks, who I did not mention earlier.
Yeah.
So he ended up making an audiovisual company and doing like, you know, convention slideshows, you know, for like,
right.
You know, like we're going to show our new Mack truck.
Yeah.
You know,
well, Neil, Bob Lewis actually did the same thing. That, you know, he basically came to Boston, and he actually ended up running one of the biggest AV companies in the 70s and 80s. They were like the first ones to do IMAG for like boxing arenas and stuff like that.
So Brand, okay, so John Brand now is back in the United States. He moved to New Zealand. And his original Liquid girl, Susie, they're married now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long story. But she's going to be one of our guests on our multi-light show 60s guest show.
Cool.
She's committed to me. And John is going to talk about all the stuff he did in the 80s. And he carried light shows through.
Cool.
And he did that famous Moscone Center one with a mountain of equipment.
Yeah. Which if you look on my
on our next, I have some slides of that.
Yeah, we got to show that, because that's probably one of the biggest light shows that was ever done. Which brought in also Jay Moss and the guys from you know, I think Joe's Lights maybe, or the guys from Pablo
Moss.
And Pablo Lights.
Yeah, Pablo
from New York, and then they came together.
He also did, when they reopened the Fillmore in '85. Bill Graham reopened it, the old Fillmore.
Okay.
1985. He did this TV show for HBO, and they did Chambers Brothers, and I don't know, there's some other artists, Sly and Family Stone, and he did the light show for that.
Okay.
Which is a television show.
Right.
And then he also did the Doors movie.
Right. Which you were also in though.
Yeah. And so he's going to come. He wants to do a show on the 80s.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because that's
I mean, he committed to me yesterday. So
good, cool.
so
Yeah, because I mean, we did some deep dives here, but like you said, past like 72, the documentation is super spotty from those 70 to 80s. It's like if you didn't know, you would think that light shows didn't exist, but we do know, and we know guys like Donovan and Reed were going, and
not really, not at that point.
No, not yet.
Okay, so Brand has his presentation service, so he's got all the equipment. Plus, they got that projector baby. Right. And Charles Suttles from Pablo brings baby in, so they got a killer overhead. I mean, really, this custom thing, and they got all the slide projectors, plus all the slides left over from San Francisco Lightworks. So they would do shows. So then this band got formed called the Dinosaurs. It's like 5 guys, one guy from Country Joe, one guy from Quicksilver, one guy from Airplane, one guy from Grateful Dead, that songwriter, and they formed this band. And so they started hiring light shows. So Jerry got gigs, and the Brotherhood got gigs, and San Francisco Lightworks got gigs. Now this is like 88.
Right. And there's a couple of actually fairly decent videos. I mean, it's shot on camcorder, but there's some decent videos online of this stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of like what rebirthed it, the resurgence. Okay? Yeah. And then I'll just go really brief here. Jerry moves on to the Kennel Club, and he's doing these dance things every night, and he's training people like Reed and Phyllis in the late 80s.
Late 80s, gotcha.
And then they're doing these thrash metal bands and these like funk metal bands they're playing.
Right.
That are coming through, right? Like in punk bands or grunge bands,
Yeah, and so you're saying like the Melvins and Mudhoney.
Yeah,
and
I used to do Melvins, but the Sea Hags and weird, whatever, Mr. Bungle.
Oh yeah.
And so whatever, so then we get a gig. And this is where I met him. I met Pete. He was doing, it was called Acid House, which was the rave of Europe that was going on.
Yeah.
It wasn't called a rave, it was called Acid House. And we were doing it at the I-Beam in San Francisco on the Haight Street. So we did months and months, we'd do a light show. Acid House. And that's where Pete and I got our chops together.
Yeah.
And so that's where, everybody started branching back. And then the rave thing happened, and all those kids that worked for Jerry started doing raves.
And I know, and I know here in, on the East Coast, we had a similar thing where you had some, Ken Dugan and Marco Ferrero. They started Optical Delusion, and they were kind of heads, in the 80s. But then once the rave thing happened, they really got a lot of work because, they had the equipment, they knew how to do it. And, so they were doing raves up and down the East Coast in the 90s. So that's kind of also, I think, where we started to kind of see visuals and that kind of stuff come back into the music scene. And,
and
so,
at that point, we were doing Allman Brothers.
Right. And then by that time, you guys are doing big shows again. And
in 90. So we kind of reintroduced it back to the rock world.
Right. Yeah. So man, I think we got quite a few. I think we got a couple of more episodes in us, and I think we got a lot that we can talk about. So
absolutely, I got a liquid one coming out.
Right. Yeah. What's the next one you think we're gonna do? We're gonna do.
So episode 3 is going to be liquids.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a big study of liquids and how they're done, but it's all going to be slides and us talking about it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do the overhead projector. Classic overheads, so that everybody knows, can learn what the original overheads were, and how they work, and how we customized them back in the day. So.
Yeah, and then we'll also do some, we'll do a show on a Fillmore, and hopefully get one of our mutual friends to come.
Fillmore East show,
Fillmore East, yeah.
And then I'm right now I've got we got Susie, and we got this guy George from Atacambi are committed. And I'm hoping to get Jay Moss.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And maybe one other guy, maybe Bob Pullum from Brotherhood. He's over here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
For the multi, we'll have 6 guys on, talking.
Yeah. That sounds awesome, man. All right. Well then, So I
All
think
right.
that's it for our show today. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you everybody who's stayed and watched with us. Stick around. We're the Psychedelic Light Show review, and we'll be back soon for talk about light shows some more
All
with you
right.
guys.
Peace and love, everybody. Right on, man.
Peace.